My name is Clay Tumey, and I am an ambassador for Enneagram Prison Project. As we approach our 10th anniversary, we thought it'd be fun to sit down and have a chat with all the people who've had an impact along the way with EPP. In today's episode, I travel to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and sit down for a chat with one of the members of our board, and he's also my friend, Lance White. Sweet. So, you've listened to the podcast. You know the drill. We don't do like a formal introduction or start any kind of special way. So, I'm in Santa Fe. I've never been here.
I feel awesome that you're here.
Yeah.
I always love spending time with you. I love when you come to visit us, wherever. It's normally Cincinnati, but we've been trying to get you to Santa Fe for a while.
Finally worked out.
Yeah, this is a nice, mellow, comfortable place.
I agree. I love it here. And I've said this a few times already. I didn't know until my first night here. We're kind of in the sky a little bit. Yeah, I'm used to 400 feet above sea level in Dallas.
Yeah, we're 7,200 here.
Yeah.
I love Santa Fe. The sun is out 360 days a year, I would say.
It's out right now.
And it's also a place where it's very dry, very little rain here during the year. So when it does rain, people are happy 365 days a year because either the sun's out and they love it, or it's raining and they love it. There's never, in Cincinnati when it rains, and it's cloudy a lot, and the winter is just gray and rainy, and so I love places with sun. And I love snow, love the four seasons. I couldn't see living in a place where there weren't four seasons.
Yeah.
That would be hard.
Yeah.
And
don't move to Dallas. We go from summer to winter to like a fake summer back to a fake winter and then the real winter.
Yeah. And you have freezing rain.
Yeah. Yeah. It literally rains ice. And, if you don't get hit by the hail and knocked out by it, it'll land on the ground and you'll just be slipping and sliding everywhere.
I've been there a couple times.
Yeah, it's not the best when it comes to the freezing rain and stuff. And it might snow every now and then, but there's no proper, like, fluffy, soft winter.
Yeah.
So we don't quite have that. I have no idea when this started, probably sometime in the last few minutes. But before we go too far, just tell us, who the hell am I talking to today?
Well, my name is Lance White, and I'm a husband, a dad, former business owner, and my connection to EPP is I'm a board member, trained as a guide, but never been a guide, and do everything from any meeting. I joke, any meeting they won't kick me out of, I'll go to.
And you go to a lot of meetings. I
go to a lot of meetings. I love the EPP community.
So you mentioned former business owner, and I love to talk to you about business. You know a thing or two, and that is such a like massive understatement to say I'm a former business owner, because you just like you're a bit of a rock star. Like I don't like in my view, like you're like a total badass in that world. And I wonder, how did you get into that? Was it just something that made sense to you at an early age, or did somebody kind of say, "Hey, I think you'd be good at this," or what was the starting point for you as a businessman?
My dad was a businessman, so it was always in the realm of possibilities. And somehow I don't know whether it was actually high school or college, I knew I want to go to grad school. And when I took my LSATs and my GMATs, it was like, okay, what am I going to get the best score in? Where can I get in the best school? Mm-hmm. And it turned out it was business instead of law. Gotcha. And I'm thankful to this day that it turned out that way. And just decided to go to business school, grad school instead of law school, and went from there.
So does I never, my education ended earlier than most. I barely got out of high school. So like SATs and college and all these things weren't so much an option for me. So I'm going to guess, is the LSAT, is that legal scholastic aptitude test?
I don't remember. It's been so long, but yes, I think so. It's the legal version of the SAT.
Yeah.
And
what about the GMAT?
Graduate. I don't.
Okay, cool. We're on the same page here. All right, I feel good because you don't know either.
No, I don't remember what the graduate, was it management? I don't know that it was specific for business or not.
Yeah.
I think maybe it is. So maybe it's a graduate management aptitude test.
Yeah, that makes sense. I wonder how I would have done on those. Probably pretty not so hot. What kind of law would you have practiced if you did better there? Business law, like criminal law? What do you think?
I probably I don't know that criminal law was on my radar screen. It probably would have been business law.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think I was probably more business oriented. It's where I would have been familiar and comfortable. So
why is it a good thing? I forget the exact phrase you used, but in my ears heard it as probably a good thing that I didn't go that route.
Well, so many attorneys that I know say, God, I wish I'd gone to business school instead, that they end up wanting to get out of working at least in law firms, to move into business, to do something related and not straight law.
So at some point along the way, and we can go back and catch any period of time that strikes your fancy, or however you want to say that. A lot of years passed between then and now, and I've known you for 8 years now, maybe. I think was it 2013?
2013.
Yeah. And so to me, I don't know if you were already out of business by then, or if I don't know your timeline. And so to me, it's like you're an EPP guy, and I didn't actually know that you were a guide. That's news to me.
Yeah, I was in the great guide training
Yeah.
cohort of Phil and Suzanne and Camilla and Tam and Donna and I'm Britt.
Mm-hmm.
It was just this amazing cohort of people who are still among my closest friends.
So I think maybe why don't we just go? Like, there's so many things. Yeah, I don't get scatterbrained like this very much, because most people, like, I'm here to talk about ABC, and so I just go ABC, or sometimes BAC. Like, there's CBA. Like, there's a few ways to do it, but I have so many things in my head that I know about you that I want to know about, and I have no idea where I want to start. So I think maybe for the listener, just for the sake of consistency, like the point of the podcast is to tell the story of EPP, and when I talked to Rick about, who to talk to next and what's the next episode, we chat about that kind of stuff. And he made a statement that I, A, agree with, and B, is so simple yet so profound, I think, and true. And he said that, I don't think you can tell the story of EPP without the whites. And so I think, okay, yes, and also where exactly did it begin? So maybe instead of me just going scatterbrained, Q&A, just talk about what the entry point was for you into EPP, and why is that statement true? I hope you agree with that statement that Rick says, and how exactly is that true? Like, why can we not tell our story fully without talking about the whites?
Well, I'm not sure I ever would have said that.
Well, of course.
But I've heard Rick say it a couple of times, and Susan say it a couple of times, so I've gotten a little more comfortable with it. But so let me back up a little bit. 2010, I got a little more involved in the Enneagram, and Diane suggested I bring it into our business.
Mm-hmm. And Diana's your wife.
Diana's my wife.
Yep.
And our business was cleaning meatpacking plants, but our headquarters group had some issues going on. So we brought the Enneagram in, as a tool to create, I wouldn't say culture because we already had a culture, but to give us a tool to work through some issues. And Diane and I really got into the Enneagram beyond just the business use of it. And we started going to IEA conferences, International Enneagram Association conferences. So we started in 2010, 2011. In Fort Lauderdale, Diane saw Susan speak. I think I went to the business track meeting that time, didn't see Susan speak, and Diane came out just like, whoa, this is the most amazing thing. So the next year, I didn't make that mistake a second time. I went to, I think that was Long Beach that year, if I remember right. Went to see Susan speak. And I'm an Enneagram type 3. I probably cried 10 times in my life. I don't know if I've ever done it in public before. And sat in the front row, listened to Susan speak, and just cried. And there's a reason. Our son in 2003, when he was 17 years old, was incarcerated for 10 years. So at that time, he was still incarcerated the first time Diane and I heard Susan speak. And met Susan for the first time after that, after she talked. And the next year, 2013, the year I met you in Denver, Susan and EPP brought you and Elam to Denver. And again, I sat not in the front row this time. I learned my lesson. I learned my lesson. I'm probably the 5th or 6th row. And still cried like a baby, and just so touched by everything about EPP, including you and Elam. And at IEA conferences on Saturday night, there's a party to celebrate the end. And Diane and I had talked. I don't remember which day. Probably Friday.
They all run together.
Probably Friday. You had. The EPP presentation was. Maybe it was Saturday. I don't remember. But Diane and I talked, and that night I was in negotiations to sell the business, and it was supposed to close in September. And this is, I think, July.
Yeah, that was in July.
Probably July. So that night at the party, which is loud, and Diane and I just went to Rick and Susan and said, "Could we talk to you for a second?" We went outside, and we said, what would you do if you had some money to try to scale EPP? We're in love with what you do. And how would you grow it? And I think Susan's jaw dropped a little, and Rick's jaw dropped a little. And I said, oh, we'd love to. And I said, well, could you just sketch some things out for us? And so it just went from there. It was just, our heart belonged to EPP at that moment. And it was like, okay, all of a sudden, pretty soon we hope we're going to have some free money that we could help support EPP or do something to help change the world. Yeah. And EPP was what was right there in front of us.
What timing?
Yeah.
Of all that just kind of working out. Funny how that happens. So there's 2 directions that I want to go with it. The first is probably simpler, and that is as a business guy. And when you ask when you ask questions like what would you do to scale it, or how would you do this? Do you have some ideas? Like let me know or whatever. Do you have in your mind? Do you have ideas of your own and you want to see if they match up to that? Or is it just like you're a blank canvas and you're just wanting to see, how does that look from more so, of a, like, I guess a more cerebral, business rather than like an emotional investment type of thing?
That's a great question. Yeah, I didn't. I don't. I certainly didn't have ideas, but I love to hear. I love creative people. I love listening to people's ideas, and because I'm, I'm relatively. I stay in my lane pretty much, and I love to hear people like think outside the box and do things differently, and so Rick and Susan came back and said, well, we're thinking this. I'm like, we want to spread it around the world. And I'm like, I wanted to laugh, and I'm sure that I didn't. You'll have to ask Susan and Rick that. But it was like, okay, could you scale them back a little bit and make them a little more realistic? Like, this is a incredibly ambitious plan. Now, 8 years later, we've far exceeded the plans that they had laid out.
Yeah.
I obviously didn't understand their ability. I'm not sure they did either, but it was just like, wow, it was just their ambition. Their goals were so mind blowing. They were outside my realm of comfort, and they okay. I'm sure they humored me and tempered them down a little bit, still keeping those as their ambition goals. And as I said, we far exceeded those in those 8 years.
I love the phrase that you just said, outside my realm of comfort. And every episode, there's some phrase that sticks out that I'd wear that on a shirt. And we're not even 15 minutes in, and I'm already like, yeah, I'd totally wear it, like EPP on the front and on the back, outside my realm of comfort. Like, that works. And it's also funny because I mean, we're friends, so I know you better than just some random person, that I'm talking to. And I know some of your hobbies are pretty exciting, and I know you're into cars and, stuff like that. And so you're like, to say that phrase, like, outside my, realm of comfort, like me, I'm an adrenaline junkie too. And I think, like, how uncomfortable must that really been to have that kind of, to say that, like, it's pretty big.
It's pretty big. It was pretty big. Like, they were two people.
Yeah.
And little did I know that their office was their dining room table, and is to this day.
Is, yeah. I don't know that'll ever change.
I hope not.
Yeah.
I really hope not.
There is something special about that. So that was 2013. So that was a year after the birth of EPP, at least by title. And so that was so when Rick says you can't really tell the story, without Lance and Diane White, this is a massive pivotal moment for EPP, where their ideas and hopes and plans and all that, like, the gas met the engine, so to speak.
Yeah, I think maybe Susan and Rick had invented the engine, and we're looking around for gas.
Yeah,
and that's a great analogy.
I like it. Fits with the race car thing.
Yeah,
too.
Exactly. I was just thinking that too. We can both relate to that. I don't know if everybody else can, but we can.
EPP.
I know Aaron West can, but
pouring gas on the flames.
Yeah.
So the first, I don't know, how long was it? So that was 2013, and then not too long after that, and I mean, it's all relative, but we started having, like, workbook ideas and all the other ideas that were happening because we were able to fund them with money. Do you have any particular memories? And at this point, it's just a matter of me being nosy about behind the scenes stuff that I think people would be curious about, by the way, about the early days once you came on board. What, in the first couple years, what did it look like behind the scenes of getting it from Susan being in a couple of jails locally in the Bay Area to now there are multi-states, multi-countries, and it's been a process.
And I can't speak to all that. I was funding, and I intend to be a hands-off person. And Susan, my relationship at the beginning was more with Susan than Rick, and so Susan would call me and Rick would call me, and they'd bounce ideas off me, but I wasn't involved like I am today in EPP. So
Gotcha.
Susan and Rick will have to fill you in on more of those details.
Cool.
And I think 3 years ago, maybe it's 4 years, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. Well, I think certainly when I got involved in the guide training,
Okay.
I got more and more involved, and then 3 or 4 years ago, Susan asked me to join the board.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm the second, the second most recent board member.
Okay.
Alex has joined after me, but Eric and Tara were already on the board and were more involved in it than I am.
I need to talk to them too, by the way. I need to make
Yeah.
like a mental note.
Yes.
And hopefully I'll be, I think Eric's in like Utah or something now these days. Isn't
He's
he?
more in LA most of the time
is he?
now.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
All right.
still his business is based in Utah, but with the pandemic, he spends quite a bit of time in LA where he is.
Gotcha. And then Tara's still in the Bay Area.
Yes.
Too. So
Yep.
next time I'm out there, I need to tap their shoulders.
Yes, you do.
And chat with them a little bit.
Two amazing people.
So going back to, you mentioned, your son was incarcerated, and is this fair game to talk about as far as being a parent of the incarcerated and how that affects you and where that might come into play as just, the Enneagram is concerned?
It's definitely fair game. I think it's part of. Apparently, it's why Diane and I are here, and our son and our family. It was. I think it's really important to talk about difficult things, and this is definitely difficult.
Yeah. So, what's it like? I mean, I know what it's like to be in prison. I've been locked up, so we can, we've talked at length about that. I don't know what it's like for my kid to be locked up.
Yeah. It's really, really hard. And particularly, it was really, really difficult, maybe more so for Diane in the beginning while we were going through the legal process. And that is the scene that you see in a movie where there's a plate of glass, and you pick up a telephone and you talk to somebody, and you're not allowed to touch them. You're not allowed to hug them. Once you get to prison, then there are controlled visiting environments, but you're allowed to hug when you arrive in the visiting room, and you're allowed to hug when you get ready to leave. And it's great to see your child on the other side of the glass to be able to talk, but there's nothing like the human touch, a hug.
Yeah. Yeah, I've said that for years. Like people, when they ask about, I've done some pretty public Q&As.
Yes.
And without a doubt, when people ask me what is the worst thing about being locked up, like what's the thing that you miss the most, people think that it's going to be, well, I miss, the easy ones are like, I miss, sex, and I miss, concerts, and I miss good food, and I miss all these things. And the reality is, like the number one thing for me at least was the hug. Like the value of a hug just can't be overstated. It's huge. Like you don't, there's no substitute for it. And the food in prison sucks, but you can eat food. It's fine. You're bored in prison, but you can play games and watch. It's fine. But literally nothing can replace the ability to just reach out and hug someone when you're having a bad day. Yeah. And like I always say, in prison, everybody's having the worst day of their life. So good luck finding someone who cares about your bad day. People think prison is worse than county jail. Prison is actually, county jail is the worst. In addition to the plate glass telephone visits that are, by the way, a lot shorter. Everybody is on edge. The stress is just very high. People are going through their trials. Some people are not guilty at all. Some people are literally there just because they were in a situation that made them look guilty and they weren't. So you're not even dealing with all convicted people. So it's very high stress, very just not the place to be. And then also it's the first step into incarceration. So people were in the free world really recently, whereas in prison, you might be with guys who've been there for years. They're used to it, you know?
Yeah, I think the other thing that our son talked about is there's a culture in prison. Like you say, there's people who've been there a long time. There's an established pecking order, societal order, culture. Like you don't pick on that guy. In county jail, there's someone new coming in, not just every day, but every hour. There's someone new arriving, and they don't know. He would talk about it later, like young punks. Yeah. Well, he was 17. He was 17 when he went in, so it was sort of ironic. But it's like they didn't know. They didn't know how to be respectful. They didn't know what the rules were. I mean, they're there because oftentimes they didn't know the rules or didn't respect the rules. So, but in prison, there's a lot of rules that are not imposed by the guards and the administration. There are those rules, as you know, way better than I do.
I'll tell you a funny one. This is very standard, but it's also out here in the free world. This will sound extremely bizarre, but a very common one. It's unspoken until you do it, and then they'll let you know you fucked up. But so prison is extremely segregated by race. Yeah, and it's good. Nobody cares. It makes things more doable. So out here, you say that, and it's like, oh my God, that's the worst. And I won't disagree or even state my opinion there, but I'll say on the inside, it works that things are extremely segregated. And it's okay to mix as far, like I play chess. That's not traditionally a white game, quote unquote, in prison, but I played chess and I play with all the black dudes, and that was fine. And nobody looked down at me for it. But where race did come into play and things did matter is if I had food on my tray, like if I had a tray, like it was chow time and I didn't like corn, for example. So you never throw food away. You always offer it to someone else. And a lot of times you can trade, like I'll give you my corn for your green beans, right? Well, if I had, corn on my tray, I would, offer it to somebody before I threw it away. And you always start with your race. So as a white guy, I offer it to the white folks first. And if nobody wants it, then it's anybody else, In that case, it would be okay to give it to, black dude or Mexican or whatever. And that sounds really bizarre and odd, but nobody on the inside thought that was weird. That was the way of life. Yeah. And in fact, if I, as a white dude, offered something to a non-white dude first, they would be like, what? This ain't right. Something ain't right here. And I don't know, like out here, does that sound like bizarre, or have you heard stories like that?
I hadn't heard that story, but I have a similar one that our son told us when he first, like I said, he was in county jail for almost a year, and he made friends, and it wasn't as segregated in county jail. People mixed, it didn't matter. He made friends. Some of whom were black. And when they both ended up in prison together, he went and said, hey, and like, whoa, you need to back away. And let me tell you what happens here in prison. If you are too familiar with me, then you're going to get, it's not going to go down well for you. Right. As when my son went in, he was, 5'10", 140 pounds. Yeah. Scrawny little white kid, and he was going to get
messed up. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the polite phrase.
and as time went on and things integrated, he played soccer, played with the Mexican guys, the black guys. It didn't make any difference on the playing field. And then things were there were certain rules about when you could mix and when you couldn't mix and under what circumstances. And
it's so funny, like just even in the moment, I'm realizing how, like, even just using our words, we're trying to pick carefully. In prison, it'd be like you got the whites, the blacks, the essays, the this, the that. There's no real issue with saying things. But even just in talking, like, do I say Mexican or do I say Hispanic? And I don't want to offend, and I think it's good that I don't want to offend, but I also don't. It's bizarre how different things really are out here.
Yeah. And I thought about that, and I happen to know these guys were Mexican.
Yeah.
It wasn't because I'm like you say, usually you choose your words carefully, but in this case, this is, in my son's words,
Yeah.
those are they were Mexican, and they were friends.
Mm-hmm.
They got along great, and I don't know how it affected their distribution of leftover food and trading or not. But I'll have to ask him that question. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, I'd be
protocol.
Curious if it was like that there too. It was standard where I was. It's super normal.
Yeah.
So we're half an hour in. I don't know if it feels like
wow.
It doesn't. If you
like 10 minutes.
It flies by. So it doesn't really feel like half an hour. So is that a green light for more?
I think it is. Well, you and I have talked hours into the middle of the night before, so this would not be any different.
We were talking the other night. Today, as we talk, it's Thursday. It's Thursday afternoon. I got here, Tuesday afternoon?
Tuesday afternoon.
And so we've had a lot of time to catch up and chat. Of course, this is my first time visiting here in Santa Fe. And we've had a bunch of conversations that I've thought, damn, I wish I had the mics up. And I've had so many of those conversations with you. And we've talked about everything from, serious stuff, EPP, prison related things, the pain of this and that and all that stuff. And we've talked about cars. We've talked about, all that. We've talked about foosball. But I genuinely find you to be one of those guys that I can just sit and chat with about anything. And you know a lot about a lot. And you have a lot of experience and all that stuff too. And I'm not even leading anywhere with this. There's not a question at the end of this. So I'm not building you up to ask you some tough question. It's just a thought that I had in the moment. Like, you're really fun to talk to. And I wonder, I know a lot of people know your name. And I wonder how many people don't know how fun it is to just sit in a couple of chairs across from each other and just chat. Like, you're a pretty cool dude.
Thank you. I think you bring that out in me. I don't think I kind of think of myself as a little boring. And so when you and I have the most amazing conversations we both have minds that can ping in a million different directions. We can cover 3 subjects in a minute and a half, and go, oh, we got to go back to that. And so we both have really active minds, and we both enjoy exploring lots of different things, and on factual, fun, and crazy levels. So
that's fun because, in looking through all this through the eyes of the Enneagram, or through the filter of that, I guess, is we're different types. We're in different triads. You're a 3, I'm a 5. You're a heart type, I'm a head type. Like, we have a lot of things that aren't necessarily in common, but then we do also have that thing that is, like, very much in common. Like, we can just sit and it's not limited to 3 and 5. If Rick was in here, it would be, the same, except to a different degree. Maybe he would be the multiplier to all that. And when you started learning about the Enneagram, how did I not know that this was first a business tool? Like, you brought this in. Like, it's so fascinating that the number of times that we've talked, and the things that I know about the people in EPP, I never knew that. That was your entry point to the Enneagram, was as a businessman who wanted to improve something in business. And I didn't know, I had it all backwards. I thought it was, I have pain in my life. And I know people who are offering these ideas, and I thought that was first, and then business, like, related things. So I didn't know that it was like that. So, so what I was going to ask was, as you're learning about the Enneagram, decade plus ago, 15 years ago now, probably, wasn't it? That's a while. 10,
about 10 years, 10, 11. We're going on 11.
So, like, everybody has these epiphanies and these things that they learn early, and these light bulb moments, and I'm kind of curious from your perspective what some of those were, either with yourself or with the world at large. Like, anything. Like, do you have anything that sticks out?
A lot. Wow. I mean, it's well, first of all, I'd been introduced to it a couple of years before and took a test, and I went, oh, I'm a 9.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone from the narrative tradition, the woman I brought in, Dr. Deb Uten, you know, Deb, and And she said, yeah, Lance, I think if I were you, I'd take a strong look at 3. And in fact, she probably said, there's no fucking way that you're a 9.
I was going to say, you're being very nice. You're being...
I'm guessing Deb is probably, I don't have a real, I'm guessing that's what Deb said and laughed. And I looked at it and went, oh shit, yeah. I think I am. But part of that was my first exposure to the Enneagram, which I think is true for a lot of people, is the stereotypical presentation of your type. And most of us aren't anything like what the stereotype of the type is. We're some variation off it. And I'm a self-pres, probably. I have high social too, and my one-on-one is way behind. And so I didn't really understand that there was the richness of various types. And so that was my first, like, I'm not this. Because I'd look at it and go, well, I'm not. Yeah. I'm not about me. I'm like, well, I am, but in a way different way. Yeah. In a way different way. And I think for me, I think I used to be way more judgmental, and the Enneagram opened up a lens into so many people's hearts that I didn't understand, and it created an ability for me to cultivate compassion and understanding for others that thought differently than I did. I mean, I always appreciated, I'm a hippie. I'm an old hippie, right? So I always appreciated growing up in the, late 60s, early 70s, appreciated diversity of all types, not just in the sense that we use diversity today, but different ways of thinking, different ways of approaching things. So, and yet when things somehow didn't fit inside my walls, I'm like, well, that person's kind of crazy, or like, he's an asshole. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, wow, maybe he's not. Maybe she's not. Yeah. Maybe I'm the asshole because I didn't understand. And so it really gave me an appreciation for all the different types, of all the nuances of being a person, being alive.
I love that. I experienced something similar where I just thought everybody was a dumbass. And then it turns out that like they just care about things differently than I do. Yeah. And that's totally fine. I want to go back to something you said about how you mentioned stereotypes and how that all comes into play with the Enneagram and the community too, about how we talk about people sometimes. And I think it feels like a simple question, but maybe it's not. But what is the stereotype of 3, and how are you not that?
Oh, I suppose the stereotype is Tom Cruise, right? Or, this flashy, attention-seeking, wanting to be in the spotlight. And for me, I don't want, I'm an introvert. So I don't want to be in the spotlight. I have this love-hate relationship with attention. For me, I would say I want to be recognized as being competent and making a contribution. And that doesn't feel like I don't need. Yeah. I'd love for you to come up, put your arm around me and go, Lance, that was awesome. As opposed to, Lance, would you come up on the stage? We want to give you an award. Gotcha. Those are, whereas the stereotype is a 3 would want to be up on the stage, spotlight, in the newspaper, and that's
the stereotypical 3.
The stereotypical 3, the stereotype of a 3 would be, And so that's why I didn't resonate with 3 right away. It's like, well, that's not me. Yeah.
That's such a big distinction, because to me, like I'm similar, by the way. I don't mind the stage, but I'm so much more touched by individual communication. Like if, like you mentioned, somebody coming and putting their hand on your shoulder, and saying something nice. I'm in that boat.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it means more. Like, and it's you get positive feedback in all kinds of different ways throughout life, and nothing means more than when someone comes up to you randomly and just, or messages you or email or text or whatever, and just hits you with something nice. And it's like, man, that felt better than being praised in front of 1,000 people. Like there's something cool about that.
Yeah, I could definitely see that with you and these podcasts, for instance. It's like, I mean, they've been so amazing. I love listening, and I think that the biggest reward for you is A, spreading EPP, and B, when someone says, "God, Clay, that one was," and when your mom says, "Clay, I love that." I mean, that's clear to me. I think you've said that 3 times since you've been here.
It's my favorite.
At least 3 times that your mom loves the podcast. That was so cool for me to hear too.
Yeah. Well, it's neat because I've done a lot of things, and, parents are going to be parents and they're going to say nice things, but something is different with this. And I think also a lot of that, and I hope she doesn't mind me sharing this, is that my mom is learning the Enneagram and finding some wisdom in all that. And also taking a look back at life in general through that lens. And I won't go so far as to say just making sense of it all. Like it's not, it's not my place to say any of that. But I think just her willing to check it out. She was in California a month ago with us and meeting all my people and just being willing to have those conversations. So I think this is not. So I'm a musician. I've played in bands. I've played sports. I've done all the things, and I've done things well. And it's pat on the back, good job, good sob too sometimes. A little Freud there, hello. But it's different, and I think that's why it means so much more to me, is because I don't feel like it's just a pat on the back from mom, and I don't mean to dismiss that, but this feels bigger when I get messages from her, and then there's no doubt I already know that I'll get something from her about this one too, and yeah,
I can tell that it really touches you when we talk about it. I mean, I heard you mention it on, I forget which podcast before, but
probably with Russ.
But yeah, I think maybe it was. Yeah. But in person, there's just a gleam in your eye and a thankfulness in your energy that's just evident.
It's just a reflection of how I feel. It's nice. I've done a lot of shit. and it's not always been praiseworthy, and through all that and everything that I've caused and done, and all the unpleasant things that I think a lot of people, I won't say they give me a pass, but people are quick to forget and forgive a lot of times, and I don't ever forget or lose track of who I was or what I did. And so I kind of always, I just see things through that. And so that's why, it kind of means a little bit more, I think. So
I totally get that as a parent. So, and I can relate to I can't put myself in your shoes, but I can relate to what you're.
Yeah. You can probably put yourself in her shoes.
I probably, maybe that's.
Y'all might have more in common than you and I do.
Oh, I can't wait to meet your mom. We'll figure that out.
Yeah, well, Mom, Santa Fe is pretty nice. I'm looking around here. Yeah, and so I don't know what is there to share with the EPP listening community. I mean, I don't. It's very rare that I wouldn't say I'm nervous, but like early on, I was thinking, God, there's so many fucking things to talk about, and I don't want to go for 4 hours, just out of respect for the time that we have here. But there's so many different things that we could talk about, and I'm wondering, like, does anything come up for you, either on topic or completely off topic, that's worth sharing with the listening audience, or with me, forget them.
I don't know. There's not much we haven't shared over the years. I mean, we've spent, we're lucky in that we've gotten to spend lots of one-on-one or two-on-one, when you've come and visited us, a few times, and we've just gotten to spend extended periods of time. So it's hard to identify things specifically that we haven't talked through, or that you don't know about me, or you know an awful lot about me. And so I'm not sure I have a.
Well, I've saved one question.
Uh-oh.
So this has been my. It's not a uh-oh question.
Okay.
I promise. It's just something that I rarely plan or have anything in mind. But for you, I think you can speak to a group of people that I can't, and it's just about the generosity of giving to an organization like EPP. And for somebody who you've experienced a great amount of giving and the rewards that come from that, and I'm only assuming because you've never articulated that to me. And so to someone who is listening and says, to themselves, like, I have I have money and I want to do good things with it, and I don't always know where to put that or what to do with it. I'm just curious from your experience, I don't know, I don't want to be crass in how I present the question, but to a prospective donor or someone who wants to support financially or otherwise in any other way, that the rest of us, like me or other folks, may not be able to, what would you say to that person if they're just kind of twiddling their thumbs looking for something good to do with their money?
Well, let me back up 1 second. First of all, I think in a nonprofit world, we talk about time, talent, and treasures. Some people can give their time, some can give their talent, some can give their treasures. I'm lucky in the case of EPP that I've been able to give all three. And so I think anybody listening to this, anybody that's attracted to EPP can support EPP. They don't have to have money, a lot of money, any money to support what EPP is about. And I'm 60, soon to be 68 later this month. And I think, selling my business was sort of this landmark. Well, I started being involved in nonprofits years before that, but that became a point where, I have some money. And probably years before that, it's like, I want to start supporting things that are going to change the world. And, I know you probably heard us joke about this before, but I say, EPP has this mission that we put on our website, but our real mission, whispered, is change. We're going to change the world. Yeah. And it's like, we would put it out there, except it's too, Susan kind of laughs about it. I'm not sure Susan agrees with me that's the mission. I don't think that would be probably too arrogant to say that, but I'm like, I don't have my ass on the line for this. Like, our mission is to change the world. And I think that, if you have money to give, that's your opportunity to pay back however you got your money, whether it's whatever you consider luck, hard work, all the things that combine to make you, or you inherited it, whatever it is, like, it's about leaving the world. I've always thought since I was a kid that my mission is to leave the world a better place than when I came into it. To the best of my knowledge. Now, the world may be a shittier place by the time I leave. I don't know, but I still helped make it a less shitty place or a better place. Who knows? I'm expecting, I want to be around another 30 years. So we've got a long time for this to play out. But I think that it's about paying back and about organizations' efforts that really make a difference. And EPP really makes a difference way beyond what it does for Lance White or Clay Tumey. Mm-hmm. It has a ripple effect out there, and I see it every person involved in EPP. I've never been involved in a community like this before. Yeah. Not just the community, but the individuals inside that community are just incredible.
It's easy to, I'm in the foosball community, I'm in all these other communities, and it's like, there are individuals that I like, the whole community I like, and then there's like a few individuals that I like. But with EPP, it's like literally every single person is just amazing. Like, there's so, and I don't even get along with everybody. That's great. So I'm not like saying that everybody is just like a pile of flowers to be around, But I'm saying, like, it's everybody is doing something that I haven't really seen anywhere else, and it's kind of cool. It's kind of neat, and I feel extremely fortunate to have been around, a while with we're rolling up on 10 years, and it's kind of cool that I saw, all 10 years. And even though I'm in Texas, most of the time I'm out of the loop a lot of the times, and it still feels it's pretty neat to just see like people get added, and now you meet somebody and you're like, oh, this person, and the next thing you know, they're just like, you learn more about these new folks and how amazing they are, and then they're just adding to it. And I've said this a lot in some of the Zoom calls, like the guide training related things, and I don't know that I've ever said this publicly, but early on, it was a concern. You mentioned Elam earlier, like we were the first two that were kind of out there, and it was a concern with us, the two of us, and then even when Vic came along and we met Vic and Alex, and like the four of us were like worried, like Susan is like special and she's one of a kind, and we didn't think that we didn't know the language to say scalable, but we didn't think that was possible because there's only one Susan, and I will still to this day say there's only one Susan and nobody else is like her, but it's totally. There's also only one Dana. There's only one Phil. There's only one Suzanne. And I'm not going to name any more after that for fear of forgetting people. But there's so many people in our organization. There's only one of each of them. And each one of them are so massive in terms of impact on the community around them. And so it's been kind of, it's been a trip.
Yeah.
To see that all kind of come together. So.
Yeah, I think that relates to my, I almost don't want to use a skepticism, but when Susan and Rick said, here's our plan for expanding, I'm like, how are you going to do that with one Susan? And little did I know that there would be a Dana and
you named some different ones now, so we cover
Sue and Viva. Let's make sure, and a Laura and a Halita.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, there are so many amazing people among the volunteers, everybody. Like you said, there's nobody that even irritates me. They're just like, everybody is just so special. Such hearts, hearts.
Including you.
Thank you.
I want to end. I think we're at a good spot here. We're rolling up on an hour, and does it feel like it?
No, it doesn't.
Pretty easy, huh?
Yeah, it is.
And you've had your headphones on the whole time, so I guess you got used to the sound of your voice. We were kind of chatting before about that, and how it's sometimes odd to hear your voice. But I want to give you the last word before we go. I do want to say thank you. I appreciate welcoming me pretty much anywhere that you are in the world, and then this time it just so happens to be Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'm enjoying it here. I'm sad to be going home tomorrow. I should say that differently. I'm sad to be leaving here. I'm happy to go home, and I'm sad to leave here. So,
Well said.
I always enjoy it. You're a blast to talk to. You're my friend. I care greatly about you, and I'm grateful that you're willing to do this, because this isn't always like a fun thing to do, and it's not always comfortable for a lot of people. And I think you're an amazing guy, and just thanks again. And I want to give you the last word, and I will shut up after this and give you. We have all the space needed. Whatever you want to say could be relative to what we've talked about or something brand new. So anything that's on your heart.
Wow. In the last 10 minutes, we've covered so much of what, hearing your prior podcast, I thought, oh, these are the things that I really, if we don't touch on them, they're really important about EPP. And we stumbled into them instead in the regular course of our conversation. So I guess it's funny, in the meetings I've been in today on Zoom, how much EPP is both a community, and to me, I don't know if it's more important or as important, that it is all the individuals that make up that community, and such an amazing group of people who've brought their talents to this. And Robin just pops into my head like, oh crap, I'm not going to forget Robin. But the people, whether they come to one call a month, or they've been through 9 prisons, 1 key, and just are out there and don't reconnect with EPP, but the people who do reconnect with EPP and stay connected are just this amazing collection. Collection sounds a little weird. Amazing group of people who make up. I think the analogy they're the threads that make up the fabric, and we use the word tapestry sometimes within EPP. That different textures, different colors, different different ways of being, different talents, and it's just such. I think maybe it's a 3 thing too. Seeing everything in its full potential, and I see this amazing group of people and think, holy crap, we are gonna change this world. We are.
For more information about EPP, please visit EnneagramPrisonProject.org. We appreciate your time and attention today. Stay tuned for future episodes, which you can expect on the 12th of every month as we continue to tell the story of Enneagram Prison Project.